We are the keepers of the flame, the sacred order. Let the ceremony begin. And today, faithful acolytes, we take a look at this. And what this is, Dungeons and Dragons, Dragon's Breath, Habanero Hot Sauce. There you can see this very lovely interpretation of a dragon. It looks like he's got, I don't see Dragon's Breath, I see what appears to be kind of fists or something maybe. I don't know what these orange things are. Kind of weird. When I think of tabletop RPG games, I do not think of hot sauce. So I find it kind of interesting that they decided to make this. The times, the fantasy realm was really kind of set in medieval times. And I don't know that hot sauce or even hot foods in general were a thing back then. This is from Southwest Specialty, and I talked about this a little bit as well in the written review, which is available in the link in the description down below. But this is an FYE exclusive movie tie-in. I don't know that this is the right movie tie-in for a hot sauce. The Dragon's Breath makes sense for the theme, certainly. But I think they got a little bit sneaky here because Dragon's Breath pepper is something that is coming onto the consciousness, I think, a little bit these days as well. So this, I think, is probably their Desert Creatures Rattler's Bite, I think, was the one that I spotted. You can find that in the written review. I might be remembering that wrong. But, all right, so we got water, habanero pepper, vinegar, carrots, salt, xanthan gum, and spices. So like I was saying in that review, I think this is, it reminded me a little bit more of a Cajun style where you have a pepper, vinegar, and then additional components, spices, usually garlic. There probably is garlic in this, unless I'm missing my guess. This does come with a restrictor cap. In fact, we need to get rid of that. So let's, I don't know why this is on here. Like, it's not thin enough to really need one. With the xanthan gum, it thickens it up. Like, it's still fairly loose, it's still fairly runny, but it's not like what I would call super watery. I mean, you can see there is, as far as the pour here, it's a smooth pour, but it's not a hugely fast one, I wouldn't say. And of course, we got the xanthan gum shake here. But it flows pretty well. It looks pretty enough. Like it looks like what you would expect. A sort of habanero carrot coloration. Orange habaneros, orange carrots. So it's more of a orangish red, I guess. You can see a bit of that in the center. I mean, it looks fine. It looks like a pretty okay sauce visually. No problems here with that. But all right, let's get into it. Main flavors here are habanero, vinegar, a huge dose of salt. This is unfortunately, overly salty sauce. It's distracting. This is a very, very salty sauce. I am not a fan of sauces that do that. Nice habanero flavor, though, in amidst the salt. I'm not getting a lot of carrots. I'm not even getting a lot of toning down of the habanero with the carrots. So they might have used carrot juice or anything like that. But carrots are not particularly reading here when you have it solo. Depending on what you have it with, they might a little bit more. Pretty moderate heat. It reminds me actually of what the El Yucateco Red does. where you get an initial blast and then it immediately tapers off. That's kind of what this does. But the immediate blast is fairly moderate as well. So I don't think this is a very challenging sauce. This is kind of what you'd expect from a novelty sauce, and in fact, actually from a relabel as well, is they're selling labels at this point. You know, it's just put whatever in a bottle and then stick it on the shelf, and you know, hopefully fans will buy it as merchandising tie-ins. And I kind of think that's what they were going for here. This sauce, by the way, if I'm correct that this is the Desert Creatures Rattler's Bite, it's about $6 on the website, on the Aztecan website. And of course, in FYE, it's about 10. So kind of what we'd expect. You've got to pay licensing and stuff like that. If you're interested in this sauce and you're not like a diehard D&D fan that like really loved the movie or whatever, I say you can pretty safely wait for this to go on clearance. You know, sometimes you can pick up those sauces for $2 or $3 before they blow them out. So, yeah, it's okay-ish, I guess. I will say that the salt definitely cuts down what I want to use it on, though. All right, so here we've got Marie Callender's pulled pork mac and cheese bowl. And you can see here, it is, I will say this, it's a little bit gruesome. I'm not loving this by itself. So usually I have to sauce this stuff up. And I don't get these a lot, but I think they were on sale. So let me just get a baseline here. I do like this idea though, barbecue and mac and cheese. I think that's a good idea. It gets really, really rich and really heavy though, so that's why I think it's a good idea, right? Because it's something that almost requires a nice Louisiana style or something to go with it to cut into some of that richness. But let's get a baseline. It reminds me a little bit of school lunches back when I was, well, it would have been a really long time ago now. It's kind of what it reminds me of with the tone of the cheese and the meat here a little bit. Although I don't remember them ever attempting this. I mean, it's not great. It's about what you'd expect from a TV dinner. All right, throw some sauce on. See how it does in this setting. So this is really where I try to decide if I'm going to use up the rest of this or not. I'm not super in love with highly salty sauces, mainly because foods tend to have sometimes more than enough sauces on their own. Well, I really thought it'd be cutting through better. Stuff like this is really why I like to keep a good cayenne sauce on hand. So I find that it melds well with stuff like this. It cuts through the richness way better. Here's where this is falling down. The flavor is better, somewhat with this, but with this, that's why you need a better tasting sauce. You need a good tasting sauce to really round this out. That's where this is falling down compared to a lot of the cayenne sauces. It's not awful, it just doesn't do as capable of a job. And that's kind of the issue I have with the sauce is, what do you do with it? So let's get into a little bit of what I mean by that. What do you do with it? I'm sure the automatic response is, well, it's a sauce, dummy. You pour it on stuff and you eat it. Which is true, but what I mean by this is, what do you do? Because the sauce isn't all that good tasting by itself. It, just isn't. And it's overly salty on top of everything. So that cuts out a lot of foods. It proved that, but it was honestly just really okayish in that pulled pork and mac and cheese. And obviously I didn't start with a strong food to begin with. But I've had that particular dish, I've had it a few times with a straightforward Louisiana style cayenne sauce. And so I feel like I have a pretty good basic comparison. I'm not a huge habanero flavor fan. I think like smoking egg curry, I find habaneros to be largely overrated. I think it's a really okayish pepper, and I mean, it was kind of the best that we had for quite a while. And in the right setting, it can be solid. But when you make it the flavor focus, I think it is not using that pepper in the best way. And this one, I would say it is more of a flavor focus, along with salt. Salt and habanero, and a little bit of vinegar in there too, to make it, there's a little bit of astringency to it as well. It just is not a great tasting sauce. There's no other way to put it. So, what do you do with it? Do you try to slug through it, or do you do what is probably going to happen? It probably will sit in my fridge door, and I'll try to use it here and there. And if there's any left by the end of the year, I'm probably just going to toss whatever's there during the fridge cleanup, right? End of the year fridge cleanup. That's probably what's going to happen with this. But I mean, I don't collect bottles and stuff like that, so I don't really care about any of that. But yeah, as far as the sauce, it's not great. But again, they just needed something that I sure, maybe they're like, well, we need something vaguely fire color-ish. And, they just checked some stuff off a box and shipped a bunch of labels and said, here, put these labels on these bottles instead of the regular ones that you normally do, and call it a day. And that's good. It's kind of how it feels, I guess, with this. But so as a hot sauce, I don't think it's particularly wonderful. As a movie tie-in, I find it kind of confusing. But I suppose if you're interested in, trying to get a feel for a habanero starter sauce, I suppose you could do worse than this. It's mild enough that I think you can get the gist pretty well, because I do think it represents the habanero flavor fairly well, despite everything else. Just for me personally, it's too salty, and I'm not a big fan of habanero flavoring, so I'll probably try to whack through some more of this, just because I have it. But this is not going to be a focal point of any kind of sauce lineup for me, that much is for certain. So, but anyway, there we have it. The Dungeons & Dragons Dragon's Breath Hot Sauce, an FYE exclusive. Now go forth in peace to serve the flame.